Hello and welcome everyone to Humans of CSU, the show that sits down with some of the people that make CSU the amazing school that it is. Tonight we have three exciting guests coming on with experience in fashion, teaching, and equestrian activities. So without further delay, joining me now is Jack Savoy, a senior in the CSU fashion department. Thanks for coming on tonight, Jack.
Thank you.
So you're a senior, that must be exciting.
Yes, it's very exciting. I'm ready to be done.
I bet. Do you have any fun plans for after graduation? I know we were just kind of talking.
I have an internship in the spring, but I don't know. Hopefully it gets me a job out there in New York, but we'll see. We'll see.
That's the ultimate dream, huh?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah.
What have been some of your favorite moments throughout your years at CSU?
Oh my gosh, there's just been so many moments. You know, I think being a freshman, I was like, oh, I don't want to be here. But, you know, I mean, as the years have gone on, you're like, oh man, like this has been so much fun.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I mean, a lot of different things. Just also like fashion-wise, like just developing like the way that you produce clothes has just been like so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun process. What's that like?
It's intensive. I mean, it's a lot of work, you know, and I think going into it, I was like, oh, like, it's just like sewing or whatever, but there's a lot of like different aspects of the industry that we've learned about, like merchandising, product development, and fashion, design, and I'm on the design side, but there's a lot of different little areas and they all work together.
Yeah. So you're on the design side. That's really cool. You get a lot of creative freedom there. What kind of like inspires you to create a design, and how do you go about that?
So, I mean, I'll see it in my head, and I just like right away, like I'll just get like a napkin or a piece of paper or something that's like near me, and I'm like, I need like a pen or something, and I'll just sketch it out really quick. I just want to get my idea out there, and you know, then it just like develops over time, and you're like, okay, well maybe I'll just like change this, or I'll change this, or I'll add this, you know, take away that, and then it just builds and builds and builds, and then when you're in the design stage, it sometimes you're like, all right, I need to take this away, or I need to add this. It just, over time, it's just like taking away and adding, taking away and adding,
Cool. How do you kind of like determine what you want to, you know, take away and add? Is it like stuff you see or what you feel?
Yeah, you know, if I'm feeling like, oh, this shoulder really isn't working, like I'll just, you know, scrap it and redo it. Yeah, I'm kind of a perfectionist, so it has to be perfect.
That seems like a good thing.
Yeah.
So what's kind of the next step after the design stage? Do you all work together in creating one design?
Yeah, you know, right now, like in school, like it's just like design, but like in industry, you know, you have the designers, and then you have the product developers and the merchandisers. So the designers will like come up with it first, and then the product developers are like the bridge between the design and merchandisers, and they kind of make sure everything like meets specifications and things like that, and then it transfers over to the merchandisers who then market the product essentially. Cool.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah.
What are your classes like? Do you get to take art and
I don't know. I mean, yes and no. Like I've taken like art classes like on my own, but you have like fashion illustration classes and pattern making classes and draping classes, and then you know you have your basic required classes. But, yeah.
It sounds like you're about ready to go on Project Runway.
Oh yeah, that's a show.
That's what you're training for.
Yeah, maybe.
Why did you decide to go into fashion?
You know, I wanted to do architecture. And I was really into like Legos as a kid, but then I was really into fashion, and I kind of blame my parents for that. They really instilled that in me as a child. Like we would always buy the latest things, we dressed really well, and I just really loved the way that things looked, and I was like, I want to make that. I want to do that.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite stores to shop in?
Ooh, I can do some damage in Nordstrom. I can do some damage at Barney's. Yeah, but yeah. Bergdorf's in New York. It's always a fun one. Yeah.
Those sound like fun places to go if you have the money.
Yeah. Oh, if you have the money, they're expensive.
Yeah.
If you're not really, you don't have the budget.
Yeah. I'm more of a clearance section at Nordstrom type gal, but you know.
Why not?
What are some of your favorite things to sketch out and design? Like, I don't know, maybe like shirts or jackets or.
I'm really into really tailored looks, you know, so like really tailored dresses and jackets and pants and tops. So I'm more of like a minimalist.
Okay.
And so I really just love like a clean line. Like I'm not super crazy with my designs. Like I'll maybe throw like a houndstooth in it, and that's like, all right, that's my pattern. That's it. Yeah.
So you do you stray away from patterns, or do you tend to?
Yeah, I'm not really like a loud print kind of person. Like some things will attract my eye that are like a loud print, but if it's done in like a right way. Yeah.
Do you have any predictions for, like, we're kind of getting into fall now. I know today it was like 80 degrees, but it's supposed to get colder. So do you have any good fashion tips for the fall season?
You know, I was expecting a lot of autumnal tones, and I'm not really seeing it. You know, there's a lot of like navies and blacks, and but yellow is really big right now. I was just at Fashion Week, and I went to a what was it called? It was just like an event, and they quoted it Gen Z yellow is what they called it. And so yellow is going to be like a really big thing like this fall.
What's Gen Z yellow?
Gen Z yellow. So it's like, yeah, Generation Z yellow. Yeah, you know how there was like millennial pink? It's now Gen Z yellow.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was a fashion show in New York like?
It was intense, you know. I mean, that was an experience in its own. I had never been to Fashion Week, and I got invited to a few shows, and I was like, let's just do this. Like, let's go. You know, I turned 21, so I was like, this will be fun, like this weekend. And I had friends that were going out too. And but your first show, you sit down and, you know, the lights go down, then they come up, and then, it just starts, and it goes quick. You know, it's like 10 minutes, and then you're out of there. But you see all these celebrities, and so
who was one of the coolest people that you saw?
I mean, you know, I saw Kim Kardashian, I saw Karlie Kloss, and
oh my gosh.
But on the way into the Pamela Rowland show, there were photographers, and I was like, oh, this is my moment, street style, like I'm gonna do this. And then Olivia Coppel, who was Nick Jonas's ex, walked in front of me, and they were like, can you move? We're waiting for Olivia.
Yes,
I was like, I'll move.
Oh my gosh, I would have been so starstruck. That's so cool.
Oh yeah, it's very stressful at the same time.
So you have a blog. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I started it over 3 years ago. It's going to be 4 years old in March, and I just kind of wanted to like express like my own personal style and like what, you know, I'm seeing like in lifestyle and trends, and I really wanted to do it to get invited to fashion shows. That's why I first started a blog, but then, you know, it developed into like its own being in a sense, and then I was just like, you know what, like I really just like love this. Like the shows like can come if they want, but like I just really love what I'm doing with my blog. Sure.
What are some of the things that you write about, like, so fashion and trends? I heard it was also a lifestyle blog.
Yeah, so it's fashion and lifestyle. So I'll do menswear, women's wear, what I'm wearing, and then lifestyle. So just any like things that I'm seeing in homes or things like that, food.
Yeah. How is that like kind of representative of who you are?
I mean, I think it relays definitely into like what I'm doing in design too.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, but when we sit back down, we're going to talk to a much-loved professor at CSU. So don't go anywhere.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Glad you made it back, Rams. For those of you just joining us, you are watching Humans of CSU on CTV. Joining me now in studio is Dr. Michael Humphrey, a professor of journalism and media communication here at CSU. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So what's your favorite part about being a professor at CSU?
I mean, just dealing with students. You know, I like young people. They keep me young. As many of my students know, I'm sort of naturally immature, so I enjoy joking around with them and getting to know them, and I enjoy talking about real life with them too. A lot of students come into my office and we talk about real things, and even in class we really get into some issues that matter to people both socially and personally, and I really enjoy that part of it, the interaction. Yeah,
that was my favorite part of your class when I took it last semester, was the fact that it was so applicable to real life, and you just kind of walk out of there and you, like, I can actually use this and use the stuff that I'm learning in my classes and apply it to my future career. So, well, you know,
you are the kind of student that's important to that class, because if we don't have students who engage and like, you know, think through what it means to do media in this digital world, and what it means to be a good person, what it means to be a good journalist. Those are the conversations we have, and I really believe the students teach the class as much as I do. So students like you are perfect for that class.
So you say the word digital or world, and I know we talked a lot about that, but I'm sure people in the journalism department as well as like other students can kind of see that evolving. What ways do you see it evolving and changing?
I mean, you know, in a big picture way, from the time I was your age, you know, which was really before the internet. It wasn't before the internet, but it was before the web, and it was before the internet had become, you know, a daily part of our lives. You know, a very few number of people actually made the decisions about what we were going to see on television and in newspapers and here on the radio, and that has massively changed. And I think we're just seeing more and more permutations of that change. You know, what does it mean when everybody gets a channel, when everybody can talk in multiple channels, you know? And I think we're still getting used to it. I think we're very much toddlers in this digital world, and so we're still trying to figure out, you know, where do I fit? Who am I in these places? And what does it mean to be good in the digital world? You know, because I think we have a pretty good idea of that in the offline world, but online I think we're still learning, and I think that's going to take a lot of time, you know.
Yeah, I agree. How long have you been teaching at CSU?
I came here in 2011 from New York City. I had just gotten my master's degree at NYU. It was coming home because I grew up in Colorado. I grew up in Westminster, Colorado, and so it was the first time I'd been home living in Colorado for 25 years. And so that was a big change for me. And I had never taught college before. I started as the student media advisor, but then I started teaching a class the second semester I was here, so I'm going on 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not that that's a long time.
No, it's a long time. But it's gone fast.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that you've had to kind of adapt your teaching to all the new technologies and, you know, patterns that we've seen in the journalism world?
That's a great question, because, you know, when I first started, I had a concept. Like, all the things that we talk about today were there, most of them anyway. Like, people were really into YouTube when I started teaching, and people were just getting used to Twitter as a really important tool, and Facebook was already huge, you know. But what we didn't really care about at that point was Instagram and Snapchat, you know. And so as the new platforms came along that we were looking at, I had to decide, is this a trend or is this a fad? You know, are we gonna be talking about this in a couple more years, or is it gonna completely go away? And I think that's the main thing I'm always asking is, what do I teach students that's going to be relevant 5 years from now? Because otherwise your college education isn't worth that much. And I've found that really, like, for one thing, the growth of social media platforms has slowed down quite a bit, you know, since Instagram and Snapchat and Pinterest, you know. But also there are just really classic things to learn about community engagement, about storytelling, that really fit all the platforms in one way or another, and learning how to read them and then fit into them is really the critical you know, thing we teach, and if we can learn that, then we can adapt to almost anything.
Yeah. How do you, so that was, I just love that about your class, that it was just so relevant. How do you kind of determine what is a fad and what is a trend, and, you know, what you like deem worthy to teach to us?
You know, I still do reporting. I report for Forbes about digital media, and one of the reasons I do that, it's actually takes a lot more time than I have, you know, but one of the reasons I do is I get access to leaders in this world, in the digital media world, because that's what I cover. And so I tend to ask them a lot of questions that don't go in the articles, but will go into my classroom, you know. So I'm getting a lot of free advice from people from New York City, London, Los Angeles, San Francisco, about what to be thinking about, and I use that all the time to help students. And then I read all the time too, and then you start to get a nose for what's gonna work and what's not. Partially from listening to students, as you know, I listen a lot to what students say about their own uses, and that probably teaches me as much as talking to the experts. When students tell me I like this and this is why, or I don't and this is why, I learn a lot from that, and that's a really important part of the class, is me learning from you.
Right. That's awesome, because we love that, like, open dialogue between ourselves and our professors. I think that just helps us learn so much better than when, you know, it's like a lecture. But I think that incorporating the skills into your classes really helps us. What's one of your favorite teaching moments that you've had here?
You know, I'll never forget. This was probably my second year. One day I asked, I was kind of like, I started out thinking a professor had to lecture for 50 minutes. And even though I didn't like hearing my voice for that long, you know, I did it because I thought that's what you did. And one day I asked a question, just because it interested me, and the class got out of my control. Like, we talked about that question for the rest of the class. And I remember seeing in the students' faces how much more engaged they were. And in my own life, I was like, oh my gosh, I learned so much today. And I thought, you know, that might be a better model. And that really started to change the way I taught. And that will always be, as probably, like I said, I was probably 2 years in. So for 2 years, I just tortured students with lectures. But then after that, I was like, wait, I think we can have conversations. And as long as I know what we need to talk about by the end of the class, we could probably pull this off if we did this, and that's what I've done ever since.
Yeah. What is some of your favorite things to teach to the students?
I love talking about user experience. I love talking about what it means to be on the other side of the screen, because, you know, we're a production department. We talk about producing content and telling stories all the time, but what does it mean to be on the other side of that? When do you care? When are you engaged? And when we think about ourselves as users, I think we become better storytellers. And so I love, in every point of the class, whether we're teaching how to do social media, whether we're teaching hyperlocal journalism, or how to write something, how to do video, you know, a lot of what we do is consume media and talk about it, what we do and don't like about it. And I love that, because I get to hear all these amazing pieces of feedback that I think are informing us about how to be better storytellers.
Yeah. So the consumer experience is changing, as we all know, just as consumers and as students. So you just got back from a virtual reality conference in Colombia.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, we were talking about transmedia. That was the big topic of the day. And you know, that's something that we teach in the class, the idea that a story can cross over media when it makes sense to. So some things are better for video, some things are better for audio, some things are better for writing. And so there were people from, I was the only person from the United States. My wife and I were the only two people from the U.S. there. And so it was just so fascinating to hear people from all over the world talk about storytelling.
Yeah. And how it's different.
Yeah, and then Colombia is an amazing place.
Oh gosh, it sounds so
everybody
beautiful.
Should go there. It's incredible.
I'll buy my plane ticket tonight.
Do it.
Thank you for joining us. So we're going to take a short break, but up next we're going to sit down with Taryn Lesser from the CSU Equestrian Center to talk about their upcoming Halloween event. So don't go anywhere.
You are listening to 90.5 KCSU Fort Collins with DJ Meanbeat,
DJ Nightshade, DJ Wildcard. Music to me is one of the best creative outlets that I can think of. An escape from the real world.
Music to me is an expression of love.
To go from like folk to hip hop to like classic rock, 1960s bossa nova. With music, there's like no boundaries.
I work here because I love music, and you do too.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Welcome back from the break, Rams. You're watching Humans of CSU on CTV. We've had some wonderful guests on tonight, but joining me now in studio is Taryn Lesser from the CSU Equestrian Center. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So we have Halloween coming up, and with that, would you like to tell us a little bit about what's coming up at the Equine Center?
I would love to. So this is our second year doing it, actually. It's called the Temple Grandin Trick or Treat Street. And so I don't know if you've heard much about the Temple Grandin Equine Center or Temple Grandin herself, but she is a fabulous woman with autism who has a class here at CSU, and she is lending her name to this equine center that's going up at the actual equine center for therapy and for therapeutic riding and hippotherapy and kind of making strides in that treatment and stuff. So last year, My Heroes, which is my organization, we started something called the Temple Grandin Trick or Treat Street. And the idea of this is for kids with all the abilities. So it doesn't matter if they're normal functioning kids or kids with disabilities, they can come out to the equine center. There's trick or treating, there's games, there's activities, there's pony rides, there's hay rides, there's horse painting, which everyone always laughs about. But it's a lot of different things that kids can get involved with, and it's, you know, it doesn't matter if they're in a wheelchair or they need help walking or they're, you know, perfectly fine to run around by themselves, but it's a good event for them to come out to.
Oh. So you said horse painting. Is that you literally paint the horses?
Yes, you kind of do. So what we do is we take a bucket and we soak like normal street chalk in it, and then once it's wet enough, you can take it out and you can paint on the horses.
Oh my gosh, cute. Did you have like a favorite design or winning design last year?
I could never draw, but we had some amazing like pumpkins and flowers and hearts, and you know, kids would write their names, and it was just the cutest thing ever.
Aww. Yeah. So this is the second year doing this. What was the inspiration behind starting it?
So the inspiration, I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's called Treatsylvania, I believe.
Okay.
But clubs and sororities from CSU, they go out to the farm. They have these trick or treat stalls where they knock on the door and the kids get candy. What we wanted was something that everyone could do, and it wouldn't just be knock on a stall door and be like, "Hi, trick or treat, we want candy." They would play a game or they'd do an activity. There's painting pumpkins and there's making little lollipop ghosts. Sometimes it's keep the balloon up. Sometimes it's bowling. Sometimes it's, you know, the beanbag game. There we go. Any games kind of like that. So it's not just knocking and getting candy. It's getting kids involved and getting kids moving and being able to interact with different things.
Sure. What's your favorite memory from doing it last year?
There was the cutest little kid. He was in a wheelchair, and I love him to death. I won't say his name, but he was just the cutest kid ever. And he had a little "Vote for me, I'm for president" stand, and it was all around his wheelchair. And every single person who saw him just loved it, and he had the biggest smile. It was the cutest thing ever. I loved it. Yeah.
What do the horses think of this whole thing?
Actually, they're pretty good. All the horses that we'll use are actually the horses that are used in the therapy sessions themselves. So these horses are very used to us playing with pom-poms, with balls, with noisemakers. So costumes are a little odd, but most of them are like, "Oh, I know you, you're a human."
Is there anything that's kind of different this year than there was last year?
Yes, there is. This year is our first year that we are getting CSU involved. So last year we just kind of put it on. It was a trust run. We only had about 300 people attend because we didn't open up to the whole public. This year we have clubs and sororities and different people from CSU coming out. They're helping out. They're sponsoring stalls. We have 3 or 4 different sororities. We have clubs like the rehabilitation club. It used to be the PTOT club, now it's the rehab club. We have mountain riders, we have equine stewards, we have the paper bag crew. All of them, they're kind of coming out. They're going to put on these stalls. The kids will have an activity, candy, decorations, all that sort of stuff for the kids to come see. Yeah.
What would you say their favorite part of the event is?
The kids or the both? So I think the kids love, it's something different. So this is an event where kids, you don't have to stick right with mom and dad like you have to do when you go trick-or-treating. They get there and they take off. There's stalls, there's people everywhere, volunteers are everywhere to help out, make sure everyone knows where they're going, everyone stays nice and safe. But the kids, they bounce along and they love the games. We played Balloon Keep It Up last year, and we had to take kids out of the stalls so newer kids could go in because everyone was like, "I want to stay."
That game is the best. That game never gets old. What would you say that like the parents love most about?
I think it's a safe environment to go trick-or-treating, but it's more than trick-or-treating. You know, they get to learn a little bit about the Temple Grandin Equine Center, they get to learn about my heroes, they get to learn about what we do, but they also get to have a place where their kid who might not be like me or you, who can go out and we happily socialize with people. These are kids that sometimes they're shy around new people, or they aren't able to do everything. Like if we go trick-or-treating, there's a set of stairs, there's not going to be a problem. Here, there are no stairs that these kids have to worry about getting up and getting over. You know, there's games that everyone can do. It's not just designed to one population, it's designed to everyone. And I think that's one thing that parents and kids really like. They can do anything they want there, as long as we have it there. But there's so much they can do. There isn't like, oh, you can't do that one. It's, you can do that one, let's go do it.
That's great that you guys make it so adaptable for everyone to come and have a great time. Can you tell me a little bit about My Heroes?
So My Heroes originally started in Georgia, so Atlanta, Georgia, by Brent Applegate, who is a PT and our founder. He moved out here, so it started there probably 8 or 10 years ago. He moved out here a little over 5 years ago and started My Heroes at CSU. So we've been at CSU for 5 years, and we do hippotherapy and a little bit of therapeutic riding, but mostly hippotherapy is what we're mostly known for. And we get to work with so many different amazing types of people. We see everything from autism and Downs to CP to stroke. I mean, we see everyone, and it really is fabulous. And that's kind of what we wanted for this EC, to be able to go do this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
How long have you been working with My Heroes? So
I started with My Heroes in August of 2015, so a little over 2 years. I call it 2.5.
How you kind of like learned to work with different people with, you know, different types of abilities and things like that?
It's definitely a learning curve, but I will say the one thing that makes it worth it is their smile. And everyone thinks that's really cheesy when I say it, but like everyone's like, oh, the gains that they make and the improvements and you know what they learn. I'm like, no. Like, they can come here and sit on a horse and move around without their mom saying, oh, don't go over there.
Right.
The smile that they get from that is amazing. And you don't see that anywhere else. You mean, you go to school, kids look bored. You go to the playground, they're yelling at each other. You go here, and they're happy. And they, you know, it's when they, you know, can catch the ball, or they get the ring off by themselves, or the first time they kneel on their horse, the first time they can brush. It's amazing to see the smiles.
Yeah, that sounds amazing to see and to experience. Do you have a favorite memory from working with My Heroes?
I do. I have to pick one.
You can share a couple.
I think the one was I had a little girl come in, and she was very shy when she first started, and she'd probably been with us for 2 or 3 months. And she comes in, and she goes, hi, and she gives me a hug.
Oh.
And she didn't touch anyone before then. But I was like, you hugged me! I loved it. And she was very excited. She memorized her horse's name. You know, she knew what order things would go in. She knew everything. And I love seeing that from a little girl who wanted to hide behind mom the entire time. So the fact that she's now standing in front of us going, hi! That's probably my favorite.
That's amazing. Yeah. Do you have different techniques, like in terms of activities that you do with people and their horses at therapy?
Yeah, so each kind of therapy session will be tailor-made for a certain person, which is really great about it. And it's a fun tailor-made because you get to play with horses.
Of course. Do you have a favorite horse?
I do have a favorite horse. Her name is Mocha.
Oh. She sounds cute.
She's awesome.
What's she like? She
is a girl. If that tells you anything, but she is probably one of our best therapy horses, and she is always so happy to see the kids.
Yeah. Well, we can't wait for that event. It sounds so exciting. It's so much fun. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that is all the time we have for you, Rams, but be sure to join us again next month for a look at some awesome people that make CSU such a great school. Be sure to tune in to CTV tomorrow at 7 p.m. for your local news, weather, sports, and entertainment updates. Have a good night, Rams.